Chairs No Waiting, episode number 809, The New Doctor. Two Chairs No Waiting is brought to you each week by the folks at weaversdepartmentstore.com. Drop by over at Weavers and check out some of the great items they got over there. Halloween's coming up. It's that time of year. You can get you a Mayberry axe. It says pow, 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 or whatever. There's two different sayings. Check them out. And a Rimshaw print. While you're over at Weavers, check out the new pewter ornaments and sun catchers and ceiling fans and all kinds of stuff that are Mayberry related. And you might want to check out a Mayberry stone coaster. They're fairly new. Head over to Weaver's Department Store and check out all the fun stuff they got there. Two Chairs No Waiting is also brought to you by donations from listeners just like you. The executive producer of episode number 809 are the patrons at Patreon. So thanks to all the patrons that are over at Patreon. Folks donate, $1, $3, $2, whatever an episode when I release them. And I want to thank all of you that do that and help keep this show alive. And I want to thank all of you that are here listening or watching the podcast. Some folks just listen. Some folks watch the YouTube version of the show. And either way, I really thank you for being here with me. This week, we're going to be talking about The New Doctor. Now, that's the season 1 episode number 24 of the Andy Griffith Show. And we'll talk about that. And then after that's over, we'll do a little bit of trivia from Paul Mulik. He sent in some more trivia for us. It's all Darling related. The Darlings. All right. All right. So let's head over and check out The New Housekeeper. So in that particular episode, The New Housekeeper, it starts off with Aunt B working around the house. Actually, she's cooking in the, and this is the only episode I remember actually seeing her taking a cake out of the oven and sticking something into it. And it almost looks like it's a broom, a piece of a broom, like the straw from a broom that she's sticking in there. I'm not sure what that is. Maybe some of the ladies would tell me what she's sticking in there, but she's checking it to see if the cake is done. I just thought that was a really cool thing. It's got nothing to do with the episode, but it is a part of this particular episode. And it's the way it starts off with Aunt B in the kitchen and Andy comes in. And this, it leads to the conversation of Andy, talking about Miss Ellie and taking her to the dance and all that kind of stuff. So before we get started any further into this, let me tell you this. As I said, this is the 24th episode filmed as well as aired. So it was aired in the same order it was filmed in. That's not the case on a lot of episodes. Its original air date was March the 27th, 1961. It's written by Jack Ellison and Charles Stewart with Bob Sweeney as the director. Now, if you don't remember what this is about, Barney convinces Andy that this young doctor, Dr. Robert Benson, who's just moved to town, is moving in on Ellie, getting Andy all jealous. And so Andy starts to act on that, and what happens from then on. He starts really letting Barney affect what he was thinking, and he ends up proposing to Ellie, and it's just things don't go good. Well, they do go good only because Ellie is so level-headed. So, as I said, they starts off with them there in the kitchen of the Taylor home, and Aunt B is cooking and Opie comes in. It's all breakfast time, and they're getting things ready. I assume it's breakfast. I just assume that's what they're doing, but she's actually cooking cakes and Opie's eating cookies. So I don't know. That's kind of unusual for breakfast, but that's what's happening. And then Andy and Barney head over to the courthouse because Barney comes in, picks up Andy. They get over there and they decide they're going to walk over to Walker's because as they're standing there watching the folks coming in and out over there, they think they'll just walk over there and Andy will ask Ellie to go to the dance with him. Well, when he goes in there, there's somebody talking to Ellie, and it turns out this is the new doctor I was just mentioning, Dr. Robert Benson, and so Andy, I'll wait, and I won't do anything at the moment. We'll just we'll wait. I can ask you the questions later, but it's nice to meet Dr. Benson. And of course, we find out, he's not, I think we find out he's not married at the beginning here. And so Ellie and Dr. Benson go into the back room, and Andy says, well, he could just get Barney the drink that Barney was wanting, and he gets him a soda. Little trivia here for you that I don't really mention. When Andy is pouring this soda, there's absolutely no fizz in the soda that Barney's drinking. So it's a very flat soda. There's no fizz whatsoever. So I don't know if it was really a soda or if it was maybe tea or something like that they poured, because maybe Don didn't like that. But anyway, that's just a little trivia for you to be watching when you watch this episode. So Barney continues to go from there to really work Andy up. And there's a really fun quote in this particular scene that I want to play for you, because I just love this, and it's been said a lot, but just listen to this quote about Andy, or about the new doctor and Ellie, that Barney goes in to say.
2 and 2 makes 4. What? He's unmarried, young, good looking. She's unmarried, young, good looking. He's a doctor, she's a druggist. 2 and 2 makes 4.
2 and 2 makes 4. 2 and 2 makes 4. I just love that line. And Barney is, I think, very funny in this particular scene. Well, and it's not even funny, actually. Barney is really upsetting, getting Andy all upset here during this scene. He starts to lay the groundwork that is the rest of this episode, of Andy beginning to get jealous and realize that Ellie might consider somebody else as a beau. So they end up over in the courthouse after they leave, and Andy, you can see him sitting there and just worrying about it, thinking about it, and still waiting on it. And of course, Barney is whispering in his ear. If this was a Bible study podcast, I'd say that this is Satan tempting Andy. And Barney just continues to whisper in his ear. It's even a scene of Andy contemplating him with his hand on his chin and cheek, and Barney leaning into the shot to whisper about how this doctor is moving in, and he's single and he's good looking. And of course, it runs in that Aunt B then comes into the courthouse, and the conversation continues, and even Aunt B agrees a little bit with Barney, and starts to make Andy really consider that this is a problem, and it's not something that you can just let go. To the point that Barney goes over to the window and looks out and says, "Hey, come look at this, look at this." And Andy and Barney and Aunt B all go to the window of the courthouse, and they see across the road Ellie holding the arm of this new doctor and introducing him to one of the townspeople on the street outside of the drugstore. And of course, Andy sees this, and Barney, they all see it, and Andy's just upset about it, so he goes outside. He leaves, and of course, Barney does the thing Barney always does, where he's like, "Darn guy, this brings out the big brother in me." So he goes and starts watching how often this doctor is going in and out of Walker's drugstore, which is evidently a good bit. So he's sneaking around over the drugstore, hiding outside, looking in the windows, seeing that this is happening. And he's standing there kind of at the corner of the front door, and he pretends, as a townsperson sees him, he pretends to be measuring the door opening, but he's actually just spying on them. He ends up going over to try to learn more about this doctor. And so he goes over, and we see him getting a physical from the doctor. And the doctor's like, "Well, what made you think to come in here?" "Oh, nothing. I'm doing great," is what he says. So we get to see Barney, with just his T-shirt on, sitting there, and the doctor says, "Okay," he takes the stethoscope and puts it on his back of his chest. He says, "All right, take a deep breath." And Barney just basically sits there, and the doctor says, "Go ahead," and he goes, "I already did." That's just a funny He already did. You couldn't even see him breathe or anything. And so basically the really funny scene on this, or really funny skit, is where the doctor takes a blood pressure cuff and wraps it around Barney's arm and then stops and just kind of starts looking at the blood pressure cuff and says, and Barney says, well, is anything wrong? He said, no, I just don't think I've ever wrapped it around an arm that many times. So, of course, Barney's trying to get information from the doctor, but he's now distracted because he's realized there's some readings that may be wrong. And Barney doesn't realize that, so he just continues to quiz the doctor. And eventually the doctor says, well, you have some problems here. And so Barney completely forgets all about Miss Ellie and everything, because the doctor says, well, what was it you were saying about the sheriff and Ellie? He said, forget about them. Am I going to pull through? So he says. So we head back over to Andy's house, and on the front porch, we see Andy and Aunt B and Opie sitting out there. Andy's playing his guitar, and Opie's playing. And basically, Aunt B says, did you ask Ellie yet? And he goes, no, I hadn't done it. He said, well, someday somebody's you're going to go to see her, and you're going to meet her children at the door, her husband and children. And Andy's like, oh, come on. Well, Opie gets into that. So if somebody's going to be her children, it ought to be me, is what he says, because he likes the idea of having a ma that has a soda fountain. So anyway, so they get Andy thinking again, even more about this problem that Barney's got him going. So he heads over to Ellie's house and walks in, and he's talking to her. We're going to the dance, right? And she goes, yeah, we're going. Yeah. All right. Well, basically she kind of calms him down, but then there's a knock on the door, and there's the Dr. Benson. He's there as well. And Andy basically just announces that we're going to the dance together, and he goes, that's good, And then she says, well, you could go with us. So here is another little tidbit that I had never really noticed before that I want to play for you. During this part of the scene, Ellie and the doctor sit down in the love seat, and Andy has to sit by himself on the other couch in Ellie's front room. And so they start talking about somebody, and I had never noticed this, but listen to this conversation that we're about to hear, because this is definitely something I had never noticed before. And
sure, I'm not intruding. Well...
Of course not. By the way, did you ever stop by Harvey Willick's place?
Oh, yes, and what a hypochondriac.
Nothing wrong with him?
Not a thing, but he insisted on medication, so I obliged him. I gave him a saline solution injection, 2 cc's, right in the gluteus maximus.
All right.
Priceless. You have a wonderful sense of humor, Bob. We need more of that around.
So what he said was, if you pay attention, he's talking about Harvey Bullock. Harvey Bullock is a hypochondriac. Well, Harvey Bullock was he wrote 31 episodes of the Andy Griffith Show. So they gave him a nod during this episode that I had never noticed until I was really researching to tell you guys about this. So Harvey Bullock is mentioned in this episode. Now, I say I never noticed it. It didn't stick in my memory. Maybe that's it. Maybe I did know this at some point, but I had forgotten. So there we go. So Harvey Bullock is mentioned in this episode, and there's something else to be looking for when you're watching the episode. Is they're having the conversation on the couch at Ellie's house. So basically Andy ends up leaving, and then the next morning he's all frustrated about this. Barney keeps seeing the doctor go in over there, and so Andy and Barney are about to go into the courthouse, and Andy stops and says, well, go over there and find out what they're doing. So Barney heads over and doesn't hear the first part of this conversation where the doctor's telling that his fiance will be arriving soon. And then Ellie starts talking to him about his fiance. Well, Barney doesn't hear that part of the conversation. As he walks into the drugstore, he basically just hears them talking about marriage and weddings, and maybe Andy would do the wedding, all this kind of information. And Barney overhears this and cannot believe what he is hearing. They're going to break Andy's heart. So he starts making his way back out of the out of the drugstore, heads over to the courthouse, running across the street, goes in, and he starts to tell Andy, "You're not going to believe what I just heard. You're not going to believe it." And he ends up telling Andy, they're talking about marriage, and they're talking about having you officiate the ceremony. So Andy takes off over. Now, I've always felt like this is a little out of character for Andy, but he takes off over to the drugstore, goes heading in there, and this is when it happens. This is when Andy goes through and basically proposes to Miss Ellie. Now, he could have done worse. He could have done much worse than proposing to Miss Ellie. But Ellie is such a level-headed person in this series that they realize that Andy is messed up because he finds out after he says, basically he proposes to her. The doctor says, "Well, that's great. We could have a double wedding." And then that's when Andy finds out that, oh, he's got a fiance coming as well. So, well, I guess I've already done it. Just name the date. And basically, Andy gets out of this much easier than you'd think, because he first says, you need a long engagement. And she says, "I don't believe in long engagements." So she's just digging him here. And he says, "Well, set the date." And she says, "Well, you're forgetting something. I never said yes. I didn't ever accept the proposal." And so basically Andy really gets out of this because Ellie is level-headed enough to realize what was going on and to not take advantage of that. And she didn't want to do that. So Andy ends up leaving and everything works out. So the next day, Andy and Barney, this is the epilogue, by the way, they go back over to the drugstore and come walking in the door, and they again hear the doctor and Ellie. She's saying, "Honey, I'm sorry this happened to you. Sorry. Let me fix it. Let me kiss it." All this kind of stuff. They're hearing that from the back room. Andy and Barney are looking at each other, and they open the curtains to the back room and see Opie sitting there, where he's being patched up by the doctor and Miss Ellie, because he fell down and skinned himself. And that's basically how the episode ends. And it is a great episode of the Andy Griffith Show. Eleanor is wonderful in this because she just does not basically go along with Andy's jealousy, and she doesn't really hold it against him either. I wonder, maybe it even flattered her. I'm not sure. But it's a great exploration of jealousy, relationships, and basically the dynamics of a small town where you just get all this rumor and everything going around, with a wonderful resolution to the show. So there we go, guys. That is the episode, The New Doctor. I hope you learned a little bit from that. We've got some, I didn't say this at the beginning, but we have some, odd facts known by few about this as well. So let me throw these out. The actor who was Dr. Robert Benson, his name was George Nadler, was his name. In the mid-'70s, Nadler was involved in a serious automobile accident. It was a very bad automobile accident. He suffered an eye injury that made him sensitive to bright lights and movie sets. So according to an interview that he did with a German magazine called Splatting Image, his eye injury was the result of an accident during the production of a never-released movie called Zigzag. He got injured while using some blank pistol rounds, and one of them exploded too early next to his eye. Since filming took place in the Philippines, there was no adequate treatment for his eye damage at the time, resulting in partial loss of eyesight. So that was just a little bit of trivia there for you. Although Dr. Benson moves to Mayberry and plans on settling there, we never see him again. We never do see him again. That's it. This was the first and last time we see this particular doctor. Andy mentions in this episode, he mentions a band called Bobby Fleet and his Band with a Beat. Well, that was the band that Jim Lindsay played by James Best. Jim Lindsay left town in the third episode called The Guitar Player. They later returned in season 1 in an episode called The Guitar Player Returns. And they appeared as Freddie Fleet and his Band with the Beat in season 3 episode called The Mayberry Band. So there you go. This marks the very first time, according to reports, that Andy says the phrase, "Yeah, boy." I didn't realize that was a phrase that he said a lot. So this is the first time he ever said it. I don't know how many other times he did, but this is it. Barney almost gets run over. We saw that earlier during the episode when Barney's running across the street to go tell Andy about what's going on in the back room. He almost gets run over by a 1959 Chevrolet. So if you're watching that episode, you can see him almost get run over by a 1959 Chevy. He also runs into a guy that's carrying a sign, but he almost, so there's several little things happening right there. Barney, his medical issues that are talked about during this episode, they're never addressed again. So evidently everything went well from whatever treatment the doctor gave him. When Barney rushes out of the store after he's been eavesdropping that last time, he basically there's a doorbell above it. He ends up pulling the bell off the door, and it falls on the floor, and it falls down. But when Andy and Barney come back a few minutes later, the bell is back in place. You can hear it ring. You can hear the bell ring. So just a little bit more trivia. Let's see. So in this episode, in the courthouse, when we're in the courthouse, you can see the map that's behind Andy's and Barney's desk, or Andy's desk. The desk has got an upside down, has had an upside down image of Idaho on it, but in this particular episode, it's now hanging correctly. So Idaho is right side up on the bulletin board behind Andy's desk. So there's this is some, I know we're getting into deep inside baseball stuff when we're talking about this stuff, guys, but these are fun things to look for if you are a fan like all of us are. You can see when they come into the door of the Walker's drugstore. When they're coming in the doors, you can see a copy of a TV guide that is in the wall. Now, this time it's not Lucy. So every other time we've talked about this, I've told you there's a TV guide that is Lucy. Well, this time it's not. This is the January 21st, 1961 issue with Barbara Stanwyck on it that you can see in the on the shelf there at Walker's drugstore. So there's something else to look for if you're looking. But it's a issue that had Barbara Stanwyck from the Big Valley, if you remember her. The diploma on the wall of the drugstore indicates that Miss Ellie graduated from Bernard University, but I think we already knew that. We'd seen that previously. The PhD, pharmacy gal, we talked about that. When Andy and Barney are talking at the soda fountain, the strap on Barney's hat changes position several times. Now, I did not notice that. So when Andy and Barney are sitting around at the counter, when I mentioned that they poured a flat drink, his strap on his hat moves. I did not notice that. So there's something for you guys to be looking for as you watch the episode. I had not noticed that it actually moves around. It's kind of up high and close to the badge on the hat. And then when they show a long shot, it's back down around the bill where you would expect it to be, instead of up close to the badge. So you can definitely see that as you watch the episode. I never noticed it. So there you go. There you are, guys. Stuff you don't know. So you can find all this information if you go to mayberry.info and search for this particular episode in the episode guide section. All this information is available there. I made sure I put it all there. You should be able to see it for yourself and everything. So, all right, guys, I think we've covered that episode. It is, I have covered it. I don't know of anything else I didn't tell you, but if there is anything, you can get this book at Weaver's that's called Mayberry Rerun Watcher's Guide. There's a season 1 guide that's by Strip Spirit Walker, It has all kinds of information like what we've been going over about these episodes, and it has even more, truthfully, more detail. So check those out if this is stuff that interests you. All right, so let's head and play some trivia if you guys are ready. Before we do that, I have a voicemail that I can't remember if I played, so we're going to play it again, even if I have. This is from Dennis Rush, who will be going on the Mayberry cruise with us this coming weekend. If you're listening to this as we're coming out, this is the 2024 Mayberry cruise, but this is about Mayberry Day. So let's hear from Dennis.
Hey, Alan. Dennis Rush calling from San Diego. And sorry I'm a little bit late getting back to you with my report, but caught a little bug coming home on the crowded airport. So Judy and I had just a wonderful, wonderful time with you. And thank you so much for just being the ringleader, cheerleader, maitre d', the whole bit. You use the term family reunion, and that's exactly how we felt. And it was so nice to get some new family members with Peter and Margaret to join in. What I was so impressed with was so many first-time visitors came and talked, and with the autograph sessions and just up and down the street. It was so nice that this show just continues to generate more and more enthusiasm. Of course, the parade was great. The mayor's proclamation, Colonel Tim's, absolutely a big highlight. Would be wrong not to thank Tanya and that whole group of wonderful people, and would not make light of the terrible hurricane situation. But like you said, we didn't know. We were kind of on the edge of it, and I actually had family calling from California to Mayberry to wonder how I'm doing. So it was just, I'm sorry, and it did hurt and damage so much property, and a lot of people lost their lives, which is just unbelievable. But I don't know, even a hurricane could not stop wonderful Mayberry days. So hope to see you on the cruise in a couple of weeks. Take good care, my friend.
All right. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you so much for taking time to call in. And we're still in prayer for all the folks in North Carolina that have been impacted, North Carolina, Tennessee, Florida, and Georgia, for that hurricane that came through during Mayberry Days. We had a great time at Mayberry Days, and we were unaware, for the most part, about the severity of any damage that was done. So Dennis will be going with us on this year's Mayberry Cruise. We're leaving Saturday of this week, which is the 26th of October, 2024. And we're coming back on Halloween Day. That's when we get back, Halloween morning. So Dennis will be doing an interview on the cruise. Now, if you're not on the cruise with us, at least you can go back and check out the interview I did with him back in March of this year. It's episode number 777. It's pretty easy to remember the number. Opie's pal Howie, an interview with Dennis Rush. A great episode of this podcast. Definitely recommend you can watch the video version of it. We had a great time speaking with Dennis, and I know we're going to have a great time this weekend and this coming week with Dennis on the Mayberry cruise. Hopefully some of you will be on there with us as we do it. So thank you, Dennis. All right. So now we are going to go and get some background music going for our trivia. There we go. We're going to play 5 trivia questions, all about the Darlings. All right. Is everybody ready? Here we go, guys. Question number 1. Briscoe declared for Aunt B after she recited what poem? Okay. All right, so here's what we're going to do. Briscoe declared for Aunt B after she recited what poem? Okay, so you'll get a bonus point if you can name the author of the poem as well. Okay. All right, so here we go. The episode, or the name of the poem, I should say. All these are about the Darlings. The name of the poem that Aunt B recited was A Fading Flower of Forgotten Love. That's the whole name. So that's what you'd have had to have gotten, and that would be worth 1 point. If you got the bonus point, the name of the author's name was Agnes Elcott Strong. All right, I see folks in our chat room are getting these. Both of them. Oh, my goodness. Congratulations to the folks. The ones I see that got it for sure are Kentucky Mike and South Carolina Cody. I see that they got it in our chat room. Speaking of our chat room, if you'd like to join us on Monday nights, we record the podcast that comes out on Tuesday nights. So if you'd like to join us for the live recordings, we record almost every week on Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time at live.twochairsnowaiting.com. Next week, I'll be going on the Mayberry cruise, but there will still be a premiere episode that you'll be able to watch that night if you're here with everybody. So the chat room will still be active on this coming Monday night. So come and join us if you'd like to. But folks are able to try to play the trivia and stuff in the chat room. All right, question number 2. So that was worth 2 points if you got it. So you already have possibly earned 2 points. Question number 2. Which of these instruments is not part of the Darlings band? Okay, which is not part of the band? A banjo, a jug, a mandolin, a fiddle, or a guitar? Okay, which one is not part of the band? Banjo, jug, mandolin, bass, fiddle, or guitar? Did I say bass? I don't know. It's spelled the same, bass. All right. So the answer, which one is not part of the Darlings band? The answer is a fiddle. It's a fiddle. All right, it's fiddle. So Doug played the guitar. The jug was Briscoe. The mandolin was Other. Was it Other? And the bass was Mitch. And the guitar was Rodney, obviously. So, yeah, Dean. Yeah, Dean played the mandolin, but I think he was Other. Wasn't he also Other? Wasn't it him? Anyway, all right. So, those were played. Nobody played the fiddle. So that was the answer. All right. So you got 3 points you could have gotten. Okay. So here we go. Number 3. How old was Charlene's mother when she married Briscoe? This is a little harder. How old was Charlene's mother when she married Briscoe Darling? All right. So this is from the episode, The Darling Baby, if that's helpful. So far in the chat room, I only see one person that got it. All right. So the answer is she was 17. 17 is the correct answer. 17. So that was a hard one. Most of the folks in the chat room didn't get that one. She was 17 years old when she married Briscoe. All right. This one's easy. You got a 50-50 chance. So if you don't know it, you can just flip a coin. True or false? This is number 4. True or false? The Darling boys sing, but they never speak. True or false? You got a feeling a lot of people in the chat room are going to get this one fairly quickly. All right. True or false? The Darling boys sing, but they never speak. True or false? The answer is not true or false. You can't give both. You got to pick true or false. The answer is this is false. This is a false statement. The Darling boys do speak. They speak when Aunt Bee serves them dinner in the jail in the episode The Darlings Are Coming. About to pop. Great beans, Aunt Bee. Both of those statements are actually said. All right. Next, our final question for the evening, number 5. What crime was Briscoe committing when Andy first met him? Okay, but you get a bonus points on this too. So you're up to having 7 points total that you could have had tonight. What crime was Briscoe committing? And for a bonus point, what's the code number? What code number was this law, the crime that he was committing? All right. Ooh, this is tough. Wow, folks got this in the chat room. Oh, my goodness. All right, so what was he doing All right. So what crime was Briscoe committing when Andy first met him? All right. So there's a code number, and what was he doing? So a lot of folks in the chat room are getting at least part of it, and most of them are getting both answers. This is from the Darlings Are Coming is the episode. So here comes our answers. Our answers are, what was he doing? He was dipping his hat in the horse trough. That was what he was doing. Now, the code violation that he was using was a 907. 907, dipping a hat in a horse trough. I can't believe there was actually a literal code for that. Yeah, she's always good for 11 hatfuls, but I believe somebody said he does not actually dip 11 hats. He does not. So if you actually count how many hatfuls he does when he's filling it up, that is not actually 11, but he does say that she's always good for 11 hatfuls. So there you go. All right. So there were 7 questions available in this episode. How many did you get? How many did you get? The answer is how many did he really dip in the hat was, according to Emmett, which I believe he's right, was 8. Was it 8? I believe that might be correct. So yeah, I believe that is right. And I'm sure I'll find out before the next episode. All right, guys, how'd you do? There were 7 possible points available. How did you do? Did you get 7 out of 7? Did you get 5 out of 7? What did you get? So pretty good. Those are fun. Thank you to Paul Mulik for providing those. We won't have trivia next week because next week is our Halloween episode. And so we don't do trivia during that episode. It's all about golden arms and spooky stories. So we're going to do that next week. And then when we come back after Halloween, we'll get the next 5 questions related to the Darlings from Paul. So thanks again to Paul, and thanks to you guys for being here with me. It is always a blast to just talk about the Andy Griffith Show and just all the cool things that happen. I hope you enjoy it. I enjoy talking about it. It's fun looking up all this information and trying to find things that you may not have ever heard before, and something for you to watch for next time you watch The New Doctor. So go out there and check it out. I'd love to hear from you. You can give me a call like Dennis did at 888-684-8415. You can email me at floyd@imayberry.com or drop by over at twochairsnowaiting.com and just figure out a way to contact me there. There's lots of ways. Guys, thanks for being here. We will see you next time right here on Two Chairs.